Are your pitches and proposals lower than you would like? Do you get used by customers to produce bids which you're never going to win, but gift them your ideas for free? Welcome to another Sales Enablement mini webinar with me, Adrian Hargreaves. Today's guest speaker is Scott Keyser, who is a writing skills trainer and consultant. Scott is also the respected author of business communications books Rhetorica and Winner Takes All. As a renowned expert in the field of bids and proposals, we can be sure Scott will pack plenty of value into our short session today. Welcome to the webinar, Scott.
Thank you, Adrian. Great to be here. Looking forward to our discussion.
Fantastic. Well, Scott, the title of our webinar is How to Increase Your Win Rate from Proposals and Bids. So there are perhaps two questions. How can we avoid being used by customers to spend time on proposals that are never going to win? And secondly, how can we increase our win rates?
Two very pertinent questions, I have to say. I mean, this whole area of bids, tenders, pitches and proposals, affectionately referred to as BD, business development, is an area that a lot of firms just get woefully wrong. It just astounds me how wrong they get it, making massive mistakes. And I'll answer those questions in a moment. But what I would say was that kick off by saying that I had a conversation the other day with a guy who runs his own legal recruitment agency, and he was saying that the one role that they really struggle to fill is in the proposals team, within BD, because people know that it's very pressurized, it's very stressful, and burnout is just around the corner. And so I asked myself, how have we got to this sort of pretty pass? And what's happened is that a lot of firms have allowed themselves to become what I call proposals factories. So they essentially bid for anything that moves. The thing is that if you do that, if you bid for anything that moves, then inevitably you're going to have a low win rate, because it just means that you're spreading yourself too thin. And the focus is more on getting the bids out the door than on the quality and the results of your bidding process. So that is one stumbling block in the way of winning, of upping your win rates. The other thing I'd say, and that's a very common syndrome, the other thing I'd say is that companies just don't pre-qualify enough. And I suppose one thing follows on from another. When you bid for anything that moves, then that says to me that you're not pre-qualifying the opportunities nearly robustly enough. Because I know that when I was at Ernst & Young and we pre-qualified every opportunity, we ended up bidding for far fewer contracts, but we won a greater proportion of them. And not only was it easier, but the contracts that we won were more profitable, and they were with nicer clients, and it was a win-win. So, there are a lot of things that firms can and should be doing to improve their win rates. And that's just a couple of them.
Good. Well, so, if we sort of looked at a company that's not doing it right, let's keep it really simple. They're not doing it right. They're not putting any sort of effort or thought into how they go about their proposals. And there are companies like that. Compared to a company that really is taking it super seriously and following the practices that you would advocate, Scott, yeah. What sort of difference are we talking about in terms of percentage win rates?
Well, we're talking about chalk, night and day, chalk and cheese, really. Mm-hmm. So companies that haven't got their act together, yeah, that are bidding for anything that moves, that are really just getting the bid out the door, you're looking at potentially 20-25% win rate. Okay. And the few, and I emphasize it really is a handful of firms, the few firms that have got their act together, that pre-qualify, that build relationships pre-tender, that have great meetings pre-tender before they've even thought about the document, and then submit a great document, and then a terrific pitch. You're looking at 80, 85, sometimes even 90% win.
Wow, that is amazing. What a difference, 80 or 90% compared to 20%.
Yeah, total.
Yeah, unbelievable. Well, it is believable because we've both as consultants seen those companies, those types
Yeah.
of companies
Yes,
that
exactly.
operate that way. So, okay, so you've sort of hinted at the proposals. Just try and wrap them up into, the sort of key takeaways that you would recommend, please, Scott.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think there are three or four takeaways I'd recommend, and in no particular order. But firms that want to win more bids must be much more selective and much choosier about which opportunities they're going to bid for, which means they must have in place a robust pre-qualification process that they systematically apply to every opportunity. That's takeaway one. The takeaway two is, and this may sound a bit odd to say this, but firms overemphasize the written document at the expense of relationships with the client. So no matter how brilliant your pitch document is or your bid document, if the client doesn't already know, like, and trust you, then you're really on a hiding to nothing. You're already up against it. So
Yeah.
what I do when I work with clients is I really put the emphasis further upstream in the process and making sure that each decision, each client decision maker, and not just the whole organization, but each individual client decision maker knows, likes, and trusts you by the time they get your document.
Good, good.
The third takeaway is that I would make sure that the bid document is not about you, but is all about them.
Okay.
Because when firms talk about themselves, they do what I refer to as weeing all over the client, which I'm sure would agree is very rude. So it is about making sure your bid documents are all about them, and every page adds value to them, and is not about you, or much less about you anyway. So those would be the three major takeaways that I'd share with your listeners.
Fantastic. Brilliantly done.
Yeah.
Scott, thank you so much for sharing your expertise today. It's really been appreciated.
That's a pleasure.
Thank you. And if anyone, I'm sure they will do, wants to learn more about you and your successful book, Scott, how can they do that?
So there are two services that I offer to firms that want my help. One is called the live bid support, which pretty much does what it says on the tin. You invite me in to join to work alongside your bid team. I become part of your bid team, and I roll up my sleeves and get my hands stuck into the bid in terms of strategizing, planning, drafting, editing, rewriting if necessary. Coaching you for the pitch as well if there's an oral presentation. So that's the live bid support service. The other thing that I'm doing increasingly is I'm being asked by clients to just write the executive summary of their bid, which obviously means I have to understand the whole value proposition and the whole bid. But then what I do is I produce a really clear, concise and compelling, no more than 3-page executive summary of the bid, because that's the only part of a bid that everybody buy side, client side reads. So those are the two services that I offer.
Fantastic. Great services, I'm sure. And, of course, the books as well, which I've got on my bookshelf. Fantastic book, Scott. Well, once again, Scott, thank you very much indeed. And thank you also to our audience for giving up your time today. I hope you've got some real good value out of it. I'm sure you must have done. And so until the next Sales Enablement mini webinar, it's bye from me and bye from Scott.
Bye-bye. Thanks very much.